Hi there and welcome to the show. In today's increasingly digitalized world, the importance of cybersecurity cannot be overstated, yet it often remains a topic that is not discussed as much as it should be. As technology advances, so do the threats that accompany it, ranging from data breaches to sophisticated cyber attacks. Now, cybersecurity isn't merely a concern for governments and large organizations or large corporations. It does actually affect individuals, businesses, and communities on a daily basis. Because if you neglect cybersecurity, or neglecting cybersecurity leaves us vulnerable to many things like identity theft, financial fraud, and the compromise of sensitive information. I'm delighted to have on the line co-founder of Klyk, K-L-Y-K, Zahid Khimji, a company that, Klyk is a company that helps you make smarter and greener choices with your technology. So I should have Zahid on the line. Assalamu alaikum, Zahid.
Salam Ali, it's a pleasure to join you today.
Thank you very much for giving us your time. I appreciate you're a very busy man, especially at Klyk. I did have a word with the other co-founder, Asad. We had a fantastic discussion. So once again, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me today. And it's a really important topic that we're exploring today. And exactly how you described it, Ali, that it's important for businesses. Doesn't matter what size of organization you are, but also for home users. This is a topic that impacts everybody, and it's really important to be conscious of that, be vigilant of how you're managing your data and taking steps to protect your data.
Before we get into all of the nitty-gritty details, tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your background. I believe that you're very much an expert when it comes to cybersecurity. You've been doing it all of your career.
So I started my career after graduating in business management, working in consulting. So I worked at Accenture and then at Deloitte for a total of 15 years. And my experience as a technology consultant focused primarily around cybersecurity. So over the years, I've defined, led, and delivered many projects to help organizations such as banks, stock exchanges, insurance firms, pharmaceuticals, all different sectors, to help them to make sure they've got the right cybersecurity in place, to help them to protect their organization, to protect their brand, protect their data, and of course, protect the people as well. Using that background I've got, and more recently, I took my steps into the entrepreneur side. And working with Asad and the team here at Klyk, we're focused on helping scaling businesses to make sure that they've got the right technology that they need, secure, it's what they need to do their work, and of course, keeping in mind cybersecurity as well. And the importance of what Klyk is doing is very much driven by keeping sustainability and taking the greener choices when you're defining your technology.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot that. Well, firstly, having that much expertise in this area means that you're perfectly positioned to be able to talk about this topic, Zahid. I'd love to understand a bit more about, from an individual perspective, and not so large scale, but from a more individual and small organization perspective, what are the common cybersecurity threats that they face today?
There's a number of things to keep in mind with regards to the threats. And, as we said, it's important for every single person to keep this in mind, even as a home user, anyone with a device, anyone with data needs to keep these things in mind. Some of the threats to think about would be around email-based threats. A lot of them come through email. So often you see spam, you see malware. Some of this can turn into being, links, whether it's to documents, whether it's to videos. Whenever you see something that looks suspicious, if you're not sure, don't open the links, don't open the attachment. So email is a big place. The other one to think about also is data theft and information theft. Everyone has something that somebody out there is motivated enough to get access to it, whether it's your financial information, banking information, it's to do with your address, it's to do with your family, your spending habits, access to your accounts, your online accounts, whatever it might be. Someone somewhere will be motivated to get it. So it's around thinking about what information do I have and what steps am I taking to protect it. And the thing to keep in mind is that these threats are vast. The hackers, the cyber criminals are hugely motivated, whether it's financial or political or to cause disruption, to get access to it. So, and at times maybe the risk is heightened, perhaps to do with geopolitical or other reasons.
Right. So when it comes to our devices, you mentioned our devices and being aware of certain emails. Something that comes up, and again, you're talking to a very much a novice in this area. I don't really know much about cybersecurity, but when you see things like encryption, it does start to make you think, okay, should I take this a bit more seriously? So what does encryption actually mean, and how is it used to safeguard sensitive data?
That's a great question and a good place to start. In simple form, encryption is a way of scrambling data. How do I mask the data? How do I protect the data? So what encryption will do is it'll take the data, whether that's words, it's numbers, it's text, it's a document, whatever it might be, and it will, in the simpler way, it will scramble the data and turn it into something else. When the recipient, let's say it's being sent over email, receives the data, they then need to turn it into the form that the sender was transmitting it in. They need to have the ability to unlock the data, and that could be via password, it could be a cryptographic key, so it could be encryption to decipher what the data in its original form was supposed to say. So from going from point A to point B, encrypting the data is a form of keeping the data secure, accurate, whilst it's being transmitted and being stored.
So then scaling this up then, I'm sure that many different people who are watching the show might have small businesses that they might think, actually, you know what, I need to safeguard the cyber security aspect of my business. How can small and medium-sized kind of enterprises or even individuals improve their cybersecurity with limited resources that they have?
That's a great question. And, I took the knowledge I have of working with the larger organizations, and what we focus on doing is helping, as you described, some of the smaller organizations, and being conscious of that sometimes budgets can be limited, resources can be limited. The first piece of advice I'd give is you've got to do something. You can't stand still. You can't ignore it. It's there. The second thing I'll say is that I like taking the approach that cybersecurity is there to enable your business, it's there to help your business, and there's opportunities that you can get by doing some simple things. I like to talk about it just doing the hygiene things, making sure you've got the right passwords in place, that passwords are secure. You're using email effectively. You're not using the same password for every single system and tool. You're patching your devices to keep them up to date. Another key thing to think about is making sure that yourself as a business owner and the team working with you, and also your other stakeholders, perhaps let's say suppliers, are also cyber savvy. They understand the threats. They're keeping up to date with what the news is, what are the things out there to be concerned about. A great place to start would be taking on board that we need to do cybersecurity because it's going to help our business to grow. Our customers, our clients will see that we take it seriously to protect their data, to protect our organization, and they feel comfortable and confident to work with us because we are doing the right things around cybersecurity. A business-led approach is a good way to do it. What do we do as a business? What data do we handle? What data do we store ourselves? What data do we process on behalf of our clients? And what are we doing to keep our crown jewels, our critical assets, our IP safe and secure? Where does that IP exist? How is it being shared, communicated, stored? And what are we doing to protect it?
Right. So, I guess cyber attackers use, you mentioned emails and I think they're called phishing with a PH, isn't it? Yeah.
That's
so they use different tactics. Before I actually get on to the next question, when I used to work in the corporate world, they gave us a workshop on what to look out for when it comes to certain emails or messages that you might get that look a bit suspect or dodgy, shall we say. Are there any top two or top three things that in an email or in a message that you might get on LinkedIn? It could be anything, but not social media, because I want to talk about social media and social engineering in a second. But specifically in emails, what are the top 2 or 3 things that we should look out for that, it is question marks if you do get it?
Absolutely. So a lot of the threats do come through email, and it targets everyone, individuals and businesses. It's very, very common. Some of the things to look out for is just be confident who the sender is. So just because of the name it might appear, it could be a brand, could be an organization that you do transact from, you do have an account with. open up that sender's name to see what's the email address that this is coming from. Maybe type in that email address into a Google browser to see, is that a correct, valid email address that that organization is using, number one. Number two, look at the content of the message. Spelling mistakes, have they got my name correct? Does it look legitimate where this is coming from? So it's important to look at for any errors, spelling mistakes, grammar errors, things like that. Also, maintaining that vigilance and a bit of healthy paranoia around what's coming through to me and is this a legitimate request? And if you're not sure, call up that company and speak to somebody, but use a phone number that you already have for them, maybe not a phone number or a contact email address that's in the email that you've received. The thing to keep in mind is that these spam, spoofed, impersonated emails, the accuracy of them is looking more and more real as the time goes on. And that's something really important to keep in mind.
One thing that I would do, I would get an email from Amazon telling me I need to confirm some details because my parcel wasn't delivered or something. So you're right, I would click on the sender and it's not Amazon at all. It's just name at all of these bunches of letters.com, which is the biggest telltale kind of sign that this is an email that's right. So that's one tactic that cyber attackers would use. Typically, how would they exploit then human vulnerabilities in social engineering attacks? And then what measures can be taken to mitigate such things? Sorry.
So traditionally, before sort of the explosion of the electronic world, if you think about it, one of the things that used to concern people a lot would be your mail, your post that comes from the postman or something being delivered to you being intercepted, right? Could someone be stealing my post and going through my letters and seeing my bank statements and things like that? That was one of the traditional things that was done. Or maybe you'd get, thieves that would maybe go through the trash outside because they're looking for confidential information. Now, the behaviors, if you think about it now that the criminals are using, cyber-based, is everything's electronic. So they're looking for ways to expose, to hack into computers, to find information that's now going to be electronic. So that could be via social media, for example, trying to hack into someone. We've all seen it, right, Ali? Someone's social media account, you get a message from someone and say, hey, so-and-so's Instagram's been hacked, help us to report it, or their Facebook has been hacked, Twitter, whatever it might be. But those things are happening. It doesn't just have to be individuals with a large number of followers or connections. It's happening to everyone. One of the reasons this happens is that we're not using secure passwords. And just because that tool has a minimum password complexity or number of characters doesn't mean what they're telling you is going to be sufficient. So it's really important to make sure that the passwords you're using are complex, are long, and you've set them in a sensible way. Secondly, don't use the same passwords for everything. So the threat is very much electronic and the hacker is motivated to get access to your data. So email, social media, your browsing history, it's really important to take these things seriously.
Side note, if I get a lot of emails, because I've got an email that's basically just spammed with adverts on this and adverts on that. If I do nothing, then nothing happens?
So it's important to take steps. One thing is dedicating some time to go through your mailbox, even if it's a free account, and set up some filters so that your email is learning what senders are malicious or spoofing or spam. So more and more of that goes to your junk and goes to your spam, number one. Number two, there are some simple anti-spam, anti-phishing products out there that boost up your email security. So I would recommend people looking into those and purchasing those. Really simple stuff that helps to keep your mailbox clean. So just makes you feel a little bit less worried and a little bit less concerned. Doesn't remove that complete requirement to make sure you're being conscious of your mailbox, and doesn't mean you can click on everything, but these products will help to add in some security measures.
Right. Okay, Zahid, we're going to take a very, very small break. When we're back, we're going to talk more about kind of the Islamic aspect of Islam and cybersecurity, but talking about Islamic communities and how they can be vigilant when it comes to cybersecurity. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back, dear viewers of Morning Barakah, exclusively on Imam Hussein TV3. Now, we're talking cybersecurity with a great friend of mine, but an expert in his field, Zahid Khimji. Zahid, you're still on the line?
I'm still here. Thank you, Ali, for having me today.
I have so many different questions. I've got a list of them, but I just, with time being of the essence, you talked about certain methods that we can use to safeguard our accounts, one of them being passwords and making sure you don't have the same password for all of the accounts. What are your thoughts on biometric authentication methods, and what does that actually mean?
Really great question. So it's important that as individuals and as businesses, we're always looking to use the innovative products out there. We've got to keep up. And, if we stand still as an organization and we don't embrace technological advancements, then that will impact our businesses and the ability for us to grow. Yeah. What these methods you talked about help to do is where you use, if you think about, for example, your mobile phone, you might be using, let's say, a fingerprint or eye retina activation to help unlock a device. On some laptops, you also have fingerprint activation. So these are some of the products that can use, and more the technologies are becoming advanced where these are possible things that you can set up. It's important before you activate these to make sure that you are comfortable with what the software, what the technology is going to do. So my approach to these things is, not to say no, don't do it, because it's important to make sure that security is aligned with how you want to operate, how you want to execute, how you want to act. So it's important the two things go hand in hand. But it's also good just to make sure if you're comfortable before you activate a biometric. But lots of great stuff out there, which are good things as well.
Right. So you mentioned, innovation, you mentioned keeping up to date. How do emerging technologies like AI, for example, and machine learning contribute to both cybersecurity and cyber threats? Zahid?
Yes. So what AI and machine learning and automation in robotics is doing is, of course, introducing new and evolving cyber threats. So if you think about the cyber risk landscape and what's out there, cyber criminals, hackers, everyone has different sort of motivations, perhaps even station mates. Everyone's got a different threat that they need to be concerned about as an organization. With the advancements in technologies, as we said, we've got to embrace it. We've got to be prepared for it. So yes, it does heighten the cyber risk and the threat landscape. What's important to do is work with the cyber vendors, the organizations out there who are always trying not just to keep up, but if at all possible, be ahead of what the attackers are trying to do. So it's important to make sure you've got the right cyber protection in place. Before an organization starts using anything innovative, let's say AI-driven or robotics, et cetera, I would recommend it's worth doing the research, speaking to a cyber expert, getting some advice to make sure that any new products or software they want to start using is appropriate to their business. And how can you make sure you've got some right and simple controls in place to mitigate and manage those risks as well? So my message is always, let's not be afraid of the advancements of technologies, but let's make sure we've got steps in place, we've got awareness amongst the teams that we work with of what that cyber threat is and how do we make sure that we mitigate it.
Fantastic stuff. I mean, I want to move now into more of the Islamic centers, because I'm pretty sure that you've had in-depth discussions with the local mosques that you go to, and I don't know how aware our mosques are in my part of the world, but how can Islamic centers and organizations really collaborate to address the global nature of cyber threats and attacks then?
I love what you just described, Ali. And if we look over recent years, and particularly, we've worked on a lot of projects together as well. And more collaboration we see, resource sharing, idea generation, etc., between our communities has to continue. Cyber has to be part of it. And there needs to be a bit of openness, between the communities, that if there is an advanced or an enhanced risk out there, communities need to be comfortable to share that with each other, to say, hey, we've suffered from a cyber attack or we've suffered from a data breach. I want to make sure that you're prepared for that. That could be driven by, let's say, the geopolitical or economic climate. So I think more information and resource sharing. If a community is making an investment, let's say in a cyber product, perhaps why not group together and buy multiple licenses and work together to buy and purchase those, because every organization in our community needs to make sure that they're protecting the data and safeguarding critical information.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a more personal perspective now, Zahid, given it's such a it's a huge topic nowadays, and AI seems to be the way forward, or machine learning and all these latest technology. A lot of kids are now interested in this world. Are there any career opportunities in this space?
It's massive right now, and a number of the viewers will have come across already and seen that cybersecurity is one of the areas where there's been such increased growth in recent years. There are a number of job opportunities, but the great thing about cybersecurity, Ali, is that it's interesting and a real potential career growth, career opportunity for, let's say, apprenticeships, for graduates, and it doesn't really matter what discipline or background you've come from, whether it's more sciences, it's humanities, it's business, it's computer science. You don't have to have studied IT at university or at school to go into cybersecurity. There's everything from the technical side of the topic to more around the human side. Whether someone's done psychology, it's a really fascinating area that should really attract a lot of people. I'd highly, highly recommend anyone out there, looking for a career path or even to switch careers, to look into cybersecurity. There's a lot of information online around how do you make a career transition or how do you enter cybersecurity, and all sorts of organizations, from charities to banks, multinationals. Everyone is recruiting in this topic. So I'd highly recommend it. And it's a great complement to anyone looking for something that wants to do something innovative.
Right. Great stuff. Look, in conclusion, in the minute or two that we have left, I'd love to understand from your side, what are the top 3 takeaways that you'd recommend for our viewers, especially around cybersecurity?
Wow. So to summarize, I would say as key takeaways, number 1, keep abreast of the advancements and what's going on in cybersecurity. There's a lot of news out there. It's often headline news, but you've got to go a little bit deeper. So make sure you yourself as a home user or as an organization is keeping aware of what the developments are, of what's going on in cybersecurity, number 1. Number 2, we talked about passwords. Make sure that the passwords used for systems are complex, are unique, are secure. Think about using a password manager, really cheap, cost-effective tools that can manage your passwords for you. Number 3, keep your devices, your phones, your tablets, your laptops, your desktops, keep them up to date with security updates and patches. This is good not just for the functionality and the latest tools and stuff that you can use on your devices, but also keeps the security up to date. So don't postpone those updates that are requested on your devices. Always apply the latest operating system and patches that are needed.
Great stuff. Co-founder of Klyk, an expert in cybersecurity, Zahid Khimji, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ali. It was great speaking to you today.
Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.